Okay, students, so today we will be discussing two types of probability. Let's begin with the probability that I have on my left side. It's called theoretical probability, and this is the most common that you've done in this course up until today. Okay, so let me go ahead and read this. With theoretical probability, you don't conduct an actual experiment. For example, rolling a die, conducting a survey, or selecting a card from a standard 52 deck of cards. You actually don't do the experiment, okay? Instead, you use your knowledge about a situation, some logical reasoning, and or known formula to calculate probability of an event happening. Right below, I have the formula, which the formula is favorable outcomes over possible outcomes. In a few minutes, I will explain the formula. Let me go to the other side of the screen. Experimental probability. This is also known as empirical probability. For my students in my math models class, we will be using the word empirical probability. If you're in my geometry, we will call it experimental probability. And this results from an actual observation of experiments rather than from a theory or belief. So for this type of probability, you actually conduct an experiment. For example, you roll a die or you select a card at random. Okay, the formula for this one is times desired outcome occurs over the possible outcomes. So on the top again, the number of times that a desired outcome occurs, and on the bottom, possible outcomes. I know that you're confused right now and that you don't understand, but I promise you after the following example, everything will be clear, okay? So if you're confused, don't worry about it, okay? Let's go to the next screen, okay? This is where I'm actually going to do an example. So if you look at the left side of the screen, okay? Let's begin with theoretical probability. So class, in theory, okay, using your previous knowledge, let's begin with number one. What is the probability in theory of getting a 3 if you roll a die? Okay, so first of all, remember the formula from the previous screen, and I'll go here. Favorable outcomes goes on the top, possible outcomes goes on the bottom. Favorable outcomes is what is it that you want to happen. Possible outcomes is the total. So let's go ahead and go to the next screen. I will create my fraction, and then on the bottom of the fraction, I will put my total number of possible outcomes. So in a die, how many sides does a die have? 6. So 6 is my number that goes on the bottom, okay? On the top, the number that I'm looking for, the favorable amount, the desired amount. So what I'm looking for is I would like for a 3 to occur. So it does have 6 sides. So now you have to think, how many sides have a 3? 1, just one side. So 1 goes on the top, okay? And that's the answer, okay? So the answer is 1 over 6. Now, let's go to question number 2. What is the probability that the number you get is less than 3? Again, you got to think about it and you got to be like, okay, what's the total number of possible outcomes? 6, since it does have 6 sides. On the top, the favorable outcome, what is it that I'm looking for? I would like for a number less than 3. Think, how many sides have numbers less than 3? There's only 2, a 1 and a 2. 1 and 2. So therefore, 2 goes on the top, okay? We reduce this by dividing the top by 2 and dividing the bottom by 2. That'll give you 2 divided by 2, gives you 1. 6 divided by 2 gives you 3. So my answer is 1/3. You can also use your calculator if you have one, and it'll reduce for you, okay? Now, let's go to experimental probability so you can compare both of them. after the next example, you're going to see what the difference is. Again, theoretical was what is expected. What do you think is going to happen? Now, on the right side, we have experimental or empirical. For this one, they actually have a table, okay? And for this experiment, what they did, I know that I left it out, but for this experiment, they basically rolled the die 90 times, okay? So they did it 90 times, and I forgot to tell you that, but times tossed, if you add all these numbers, I'm gonna write it down here. The total number of times that it was tossed was 90, okay? The number, you know, these are the sides on the die, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now using this table, using this experiment, what is the probability of a 3? So this is what you do. Here's a 3. 14. So guess what? 14 goes on the top, and then 90 goes on the bottom. Okay? So once again, this is the experimental probability. So what I am looking for is information from the table to answer this question, okay? So if I reduce this, I can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. That'll reduce to 7/45, okay? Now, let's go to question number 2, and I'll use a different color. I'll use green for that one. For example number 2, we are still looking for the probability, the experimental probability of getting a number less than 3. Now let's look at the table. Again, how many numbers are less than 3? 1 and 2. So what I do is I look at the frequency, these two, and I add them up. 13 plus 15. And that will give me 28. Again, on the bottom, you put the total, okay? And right after you do that, you can pick up a calculator and reduce, or you can do it by hand if you want to. If you don't know how to reduce by hand, you can always find a video. You can always go to YouTube and type in how to reduce fractions, okay? So to reduce this fraction, basically what I would do is I would divide by 2, and then that gives me 14/45, okay? So I put these side by side so you can compare and contrast both of them at the same time. Now let me make something very clear. Some of your questions in Schoology don't want the answer as a fraction. So let me show you how to convert the fractions into percentages. Some of the questions want a percent. So let me go back to 1/3 to show you how you change 1/3 into a percent. What you do is you pick up your calculator and you do 1 divided by 3. Okay, so I did 1 divided by 3, and my calculator gave me 0.33333, and the 3 continues. Okay, well, what I do is this. To change it to a percent, I move the decimal twice to the right. This becomes 33.333%. And again, the 3 continues. So what I want to do is, because I like percentages as whole numbers, and that's how you have to put them in Schoology, you have to round to the whole number. So this 3 looks at the 3 on the right. Because this number is less than 5, then we will be rounding down. So the answer would be 33%. So again, in Schoology, it'll either be a fraction or a percent, okay? I know that this has been a long explanation, so if you still need additional assistance, your teacher, or if I'm your teacher, we have office hours. You can join our office hours to get a small group or one-on-one assistance. Thank you so much, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you.